someone I go so far back with in porn, Carnegie Velvet. Welcome to the
Woo!
podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I feel like you've always been such a mainstay of queer porn to me. Like before I even got into queer porn, I felt like you were making it with both Trouble Films and Crash Pad. And just kind of how did you get into it? Because I feel like I've always known of queer porn with you around. I've never really, I feel like, watched or been involved in queer porn before you were here. So kind of like where did you come into all of this? Because I obviously know we used to live in the same neighborhood with like nearly every porn performer in Oakland back
True.
probably like 6 years ago.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So
Exactly.
how did you get there?
Oof. Well, that's so flattering that you think of me as a mainstay of queer porn.
For
I love
sure.
that.
I
That's
think you're definitely one of, when you think of queer porn, I think you're definitely one of the performers
ah
that it's like, oh yeah, for sure.
ah oh my
You,
God.
yeah, you need to think that, really? For
I
sure.
know. Well, I mean, yeah, sure. I can think that. I think
Good.
I think like, oh my God, okay. Well, I guess I'll get into my shock later, but I feel comfortable saying that I am also the artist formerly known as Lyric Seal.
Mhm.
So it's like I guess I kind of think of Lyric Seal as a mainstay of queer porn, but I do feel like there's been a okay adjustment. It's taken a little while, but people are catching on to being Carnegie now, and that feels good. How I got into queer porn literally was I was at a careers in sex panel um, as a student. Like I was visiting Smith College.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yep, I went to Hampshire College and I went to a event at Smith College one night. My best friend, who I went to school with, was really excited about this performer, Jiz Lee, and I had just gotten introduced to their work and did not know anything. Mostly just because I didn't really know that queer porn existed, and
For sure.
whenever I tried to look at porn, like there was a lot of stuff that I liked, but there was also always this like feeling saturating it, like I couldn't relate, but also
Hmm.
like I wanted to relate, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um and I had already started doing sex work um around age 19, and so I was like 21 when I met Jazz, and it was so
You
sweet.
wait. Where did
Yeah,
you met at a college event? You met Jiz
I
there?
I
That's how I got into porn too.
did.
I'm like, wait, we have the same origin story of like going to a college event and then just leaving there.
Yeah, wow, that's so funny. I'm like, they're just going around recruiting, actually.
I know. Wow.
I kind of love it. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, college queer, you want a cool career?
It was like totally the same thing. I was like camming at the time on my college campus, like same thing, like already doing sex work, and then you see Jiz Lee. Were
Uh-huh.
they were they touring with their like 30% orgy? Because that's what they showed when I saw them, and I was like, wow, I need to start doing porn.
You know what? I don't that's so funny. I don't remember what they showed. I remember that that twincest was a thing, or had
Oh
just
yeah.
just
Damn.
immediately recently been a thing. I'm like, wow, I feel like an ancient relic of porn. But I
Yeah, that's so old school. I definitely knew of that site. I was like, this is so cool.
yeah, it was
Wow.
a picture from it was my background on my computer for a while in college. It was like a picture of Jez and Sean, like in the shower with like blood on their mouths or something. Like they had been beating each other up, but like in a sexy way. Yeah.
Wow. We
Yeah.
have such relatable experience at the time. I'm like, oh yeah, I had like Stoy as my phone background at the time.
Yes. Oh
It's
my
like
God.
totally wow. I feel like it was such a thing though, because there was so much like you could be on a college campus and then get exposed to all this porn. And it's really weird thinking about it now,
Yes.
but that's how it was like. I don't know what year you were in college. I was in like 2012, I
Yeah,
think.
I graduated in 2012, and
Mm.
so yeah, I met Jiz like my third year, maybe something like that. So yeah, like 2000, 2010, 11 time
Are
for
you
sure.
from the East Coast originally, or are you from the West Coast?
I am from the East Coast.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
from New Jersey.
Oh, really?
Um,
I never knew that. I just assumed you were from somewhere on the West Coast. I don't know
oh my,
why. It's
oh
so
my
weird.
God. Well, I mean, I think it's kind of like when you meet people in a certain place and they're so embedded as a part of your like
For sure.
landscape, it just seems like they belong there. I definitely think I have a lot of West Coast qualities, but I also very much know that I am an East Coast person when it comes down to certain things. So, yep, New Jersey, only the 705. Yep. But yeah, so the thing I do remember is that there were bubbles at this event.
Mhm.
I don't remember the porn, but I remember there being bubbles. Like people were blowing bubbles, and which is really funny to think about now in like the era of the Panda Park, the pandemic, the Pansia, the uh,
Pandemic.
yeah, exactly. It's really hard to imagine it in the pandemic, people like blowing through things
Yeah.
into shared space. Like so many things that we have done, like makeout parties,
Oh my
like
God, there were so many sex parties and makeout parties, and they were so normal. And I was just like,
and it's like cool. I love that they're normal. It's more like I don't feel like as a queer person I have learned caution in many ways about spit exchange. Fluid exchange for sure. I'm like learned all about all of the safer sex practices, uh but spit from our mouths, which carries viruses.
it's so hard because it's such a pivotal part of my porn is like getting spit on or spit in my mouth that
Yes.
it's like such a thing where like it was our first scene back from lockdown and that happened in the first like 3 minutes of the scene and I just like it just like flashed through my eyes. I'm like, wow, I've been quarantining for like 18 months before this.
I know it's like get back into it. Well, but you
Yeah,
were okay, right?
yeah, I
You were
was fine.
it went well. Right. um, spit. It's not entirely off limits anymore,
Mhm.
but yeah. So Bubbles, Jizzly, and I had been specifically doing a lot of like nude modeling. I was using Model Mayhem. Okay.
Oh yeah,
That,
throwback.
yeah. Model Mayhem and Craigslist and Backpage and all of the cool places on like probably the very very last year that you could do anything with any of those. But Model Mayhem is funny. I still have a Model Mayhem account. It's like mostly useless, but occasionally someone comes on and is like, I have a photo shoot. It is in this place and it is going to be $3,000 a day. And I'm like, I know that this is not real. So,
Yeah, not so much. There's like a few like old adult industry things that I'm on that are like
Mhm.
that, where I'll get like an occasional like crazy request where they'll be like $5,000, 15-person gangbang. I'm like, you don't have this website. That's not a thing. If it was, I would be very aware of it.
Sometimes I feel like scams are sometimes done by, I mean, I don't know, but I sometimes I feel like they're like boomer scams
Mhm.
specifically, where I'm just like, you're trying to scam someone who doesn't know how to use the internet, but
Yep.
I grew up using the internet, and so I can tell that you don't have that website. Like, I can tell that your email is like 12345 jklol at gmail.com. I'm not
Yeah.
confused. But oh my God, yeah. So I was modeling and I was really excited about the idea of porn. I had gotten into NoFo when it was,
Oh, hell yes.
yes, when it was NoFo, and like was really into the trouble films aesthetic, and
For sure.
was feeling just excited about stuff going on in the Bay in general. And so I was like, okay, I'm already planning on being in the Bay Area the following summer because I had an internship with Sins Invalid. So I was also getting involved with disability justice stuff in
Mm,
the Bay. And so, yeah, the Bay was just kind of like this magical land that was beckoning me,
for sure.
being like, you can be in queer porn here, and you can be a disability justice activist, and you can be a dancer, you can be all the things.
And there's like gay people everywhere. Like
Yes.
there were so many queers at the time here.
Oh my God, I know. It was like yeah, I'm like, was that the golden era? Did we did we experience the golden era of queer Bay? I mean, I guess there have been many
Yeah.
golden eras that then flop away,
I
but
think, yeah, I think the queer porn thing that happened here, I think it's really important to look at now because it was like really a full-blown scene that like people from all over the country were moving here for, which is really crazy to think about now.
yeah. And it was I mean, it was honestly such a supportive community for me. Like when I reflect on like who was my strongest community when I was living in Oakland, it's definitely other queer porn people.
Yeah.
And like sex workers of many stripes, but like specifically people who perform on screen.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and it I don't know. I mean, I knew I wanted to be in porn because I wanted to have a different way to look at my body
Hmm.
because I have trauma,
Hmm.
FYI. as, as a multiply marginalized person,
Hmm.
um, and you know, just whatever. I've experienced pain, and I have been alienated and distanced from my body throughout like a lot of my childhood and adolescence and 20s. But I was like, oh, maybe if I actually see myself having sex, that will be this really healing, validating thing,
Hmm.
because all these ideas that we have about ourselves, about what we look like during sex, kind of just like go out the window. And I first shot with Crash Pad, and the nice thing about Crash Pad is that it's very not prescriptive. And
Hmm.
so I feel like it's a really nice, I just feel like Crash Pad is such a great like gateway porn to
For
act
sure.
in, because they work really hard to make you feel comfortable. They have a very specific like setup. Like right now we're going to have a snack, and then we're going to we're gonna have some water and coffee, and then we're gonna go in and we're gonna just have some nice sex, and here are all these
Yeah.
toys in case you want them. Don't worry, a bunch of people are surrounding the bed filming you, but it won't be a big deal. And so that was my introduction in, I think 2012 is when
Was that your first shoot?
yeah.
Wow,
Hmm.
that was my first shoot too. Wow. It really does sound like Jizz is going around the country being like, oh, I could find a queer porn performer. Oh, they're on Crash Pad the next year.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, like what happened was my friend, I was like sitting at the top of this like amphitheater at Smith, and my friend went and was like, I want you to meet Gisli. And I was like, I don't know. And because I felt shy. And then they were like, no, 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 no. Like, you're a model, and I want you to talk to them about being a model and ways you can do that more. And so I said, okay. And they went and got them, which I am very proud of them for to this day, because they're not like a pushy, outgoing person necessarily in that
Mhm.
way, but they are very assertive and they are very sure when they know something is right. So it was very, it felt very righteous. They like went and they got them and they brought them up and they're like, my friend would like to speak with you. And so we talked and I told them what I'd been doing and I told them how much seeing queer porn meant to me and how different it felt and all these things. Um, and I said that I was already going to be in the Bay, and they were like, "Oh, I'm just gonna like speed ahead your application then. I'm just gonna like put it in so that you shoot like whatever. We'll do it in 2 months." And I was like, "Okay." And so then they just took me under their wing. Like they honestly became my like, you know, queer porn fairy god person, and like made sure I ate and like
Aw.
introduced me to people, and we had lots of adventures. We were like very close friends when I first got to the Bay. So
That's so great to like
yeah,
find that when you move here.
yeah.
Yeah. I showed up early to the event that I met Jiz at, and I didn't go to the college. I was just living on the campus being a cam girl. So
Yes, lifestyle. That's yeah.
yeah. So then Jiz was like, "Oh, do you know where the bathroom is?" So I tried to help them find it, but I we got lost. And then I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm like do clips on my own and all that stuff." And they basically were like, "Oh yeah, we'll just move your application up." Like same thing.
What? That's
I
so
know, right? I'm like, wow, I guess there really was a very way you get into queer porn, I guess.
it was a very specific system, you know.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they say like mainstream porn companies recruit at like malls and stuff, but I guess this is what queer porn did at like colleges.
That totally makes sense. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like if queer porn were a city, it would be like a gay college town of a
Yeah.
city.
It
So,
would it would be Western Mass for sure. Like without a doubt. There like the amount Western Massachusetts has come up on this podcast by other people is crazy.
I
Like
live there.
the amount of porn that's made there is so crazy. Oh, do you live there now?
I don't live there now, but I have lived there. That's where Hampshire was, and that's
Yeah.
where Smith was, and well, I suppose they're still there, but I'm not, so it doesn't matter. Um, yeah, like there was a lot of stuff going on in Western Mass, and a lot being made by like college students and whatever. But I definitely feel like I made a lot of really cool, weird, experimental films and stuff, and cool, weird dances and immersive performance art in Western Mass. So,
I feel like
yeah,
it's just so interesting how much stuff is made in Massachusetts in porn that you just never think about. Like you obviously think about like LA and Vegas being porn hubs, but you never think about Massachusetts. But there's like honestly so much stuff that's made there.
that's really cool. Like, are there specific companies that are based there?
Yeah. When Nika Noel was still doing stuff with Mile High, they were shooting all their stuff in Massachusetts, like on Cape Cod or on Martha's Vineyard and stuff. And then
Wow.
there's Bella Vendetta is based in North Adams
Oh,
over
okay.
there.
Yeah.
So they do stuff there and they do stuff around Springfield. And yeah, there's quite a few porn performers who came out of Western Mass. Actually, someone who you performed with, Susie Spindrift, also went to
Yes,
Smith. Did you
yes.
did you guys know each other back then, or?
No, we didn't. We met in Seattle.
Mm.
Um, but I had seen their performances, and then we just started hanging out, mostly going to karaoke and also having like long, like intellectual conversations into the night. 'Cause they're a little genius. I think
I
that
love
like
them so much. They're like one
they
of the
just go
coolest
to
people I met.
school in Europe now, right? Like,
Wait, really?
uh-huh.
I had no idea.
Yeah. I think that they yeah, because they left Seattle, and I'm pretty sure that they're just like that their job is going to school in that way where you like get PhDs and you write about your PhDs and you know, like they love it. They love that
That's so cool.
stuff.
And they're like such an amazing performer. It's just so wild to me when people are just like, "Oh yeah, I'm really good at this thing, but I just want to like do academia for a while." Like it's
Yeah.
just so cool.
I know. I know. That's the thing about art is that I have this real like streamlined understanding of like, you know, you watch the biopic about someone and it's always like once they got into their thing, they never looked back and they just do it forever and that's why they're a legend. And so I have always wondered if I like wasn't devoted enough, right, to any like discipline because I allow myself to like come out of it to explore other possibilities. But I feel grateful for that way of being. And I feel glad that I took the break from porn that I did because I needed to really examine why I was still doing it because
Yeah.
I realized like do you I mean I totally random question. Do you
Oh,
ever have
ask away.
camming anxiety where you're like, ugh, I just don't want to put my face on anything right
Um,
now? I do.
See, I feel like I almost view it as I got really burnt out in camming at one point during all of the whole pandemic.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if I have an anxiety about it. I think I've been doing it for so long now. It's just
Yeah,
being in my room and
right.
like if people give me money, great. Which is really hard to rationalize because I have like a lot of trauma around like there's a lot of homelessness in my family and stuff. So
Mm,
for me, like even if I'm not in a survival mindset, the idea of camming can put me in that sometimes because I'm like, oh, I know how much I'm getting paid for today. You get what I'm saying?
I do.
So if you have like 3, 4 bad days, that's when it would get really bad for me. But I really just had to the nerdy thing I've really gotten into during the pandemic is like listening to sports psychology podcasts because so much of it's so applicable for being a porn performer.
What?
Because yeah,
Cool.
because you have to deal with all this shit around you and all this talk about your career and you're thinking about it all the time and you're like, am I doing the right thing? Should I make this decision? What if I'm not doing this project? And just like all this shit that if you can just get rid of that and just perform, you're going to be a better performer and be happier instead of like trying to fixate on what your quote unquote career is. And it honestly just took the pandemic to make me stop from doing everything I was doing and like traveling and working on the next project to like actually realize that shit.
Mm, yeah, I hear that. And I really relate to the sort of like scarcity panic also.
Yeah.
Um and like I don't know. Yeah, I feel like I have also internalized some shame because akin to your like horrible BBC
Yeah.
interview, I have also had not necessarily, well, I have had weird things with press, but I've just had so many weird conversations with people that have like internalized really weird feelings about my body and about making
Hmm.
porn and um particularly around this like I couldn't hack the dynamic of like people expecting that I feel a certain way about my body, like a certain
Yeah.
level of like confidence and like ease and whatever, um, because I perform in porn. Like, apparently, that is like logically connected. Like, oh, if you do this, then you must not have any anxieties
Yeah, for
about
sure.
your body or sex. And I'm like, well, that's definitely not how it works.
But I guess that's maybe to say how good your performance is that you're getting so lost in your performance that's not coming across on camera, do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do see that. I do see that, and I like thank you. Um, you're
Of
definitely
course.
you're driving home in this interview lovely things about myself and
Yeah, that's what this is for because I'm like, people don't talk of porn enough and like actually talk about this stuff.
my
And I think it's just like all rooted in like, especially like American, like anti-sex work of all kinds, and especially like getting to like do stuff in Europe, like festivals and stuff, like it's just taken more seriously there. And I feel
mm,
like we need to actually like talk about porn performers career in a more serious way, because I feel like all these interviews that we get are so like, even if it's for like a quote unquote good website like something like Glamour Cosmopolitan, they want like the surface level, oh yeah, I do porn and I'm fine and I'm
yeah.
a, yeah, and like that's it, see, I'm not crazy. Like that's basically it. And like I appreciate getting those press things occasionally and being able to talk about my project for a line or two, but it doesn't really take porn seriously, you know?
No, I know. And it like it oh man. It sometimes the way that I even promote porn doesn't feel like it takes it seriously. But that's because I feel like there is this element of porn that's a little like campy, clowny.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is like this almost silly humorous aspect to porn in general because bodies are goofy and because
Yeah.
there's a certain kind of like I feel like accepted sexy way to talk about porn
Mm-hmm.
as a performer and to talk about your body as a performer that are not necessarily ways that I always talk about my body or sex, but they are actually like it is actually fun for me to talk
Mm-hmm.
about it in that way. So
I
the
feel like
serious fun, the combination.
I think it's like starting to come around in the industry as a whole. I feel like when we were both in Oakland doing queer porn, the idea that people would call it art would be like scoffed at by mainstream porn. They'd be like, you're making porn. Even if it's arty, it's not art. And now when you go to these award shows and see like these acceptance speeches, everyone's talking about porn as art now. And I think it's just
Oh.
really starting to come around that like I think mainstream kind of scoffed at all that stuff before. But I think it's really starting to become like kind of a universal thing that we're making art instead of just it being porn.
Right. Right. I know. Yeah. I feel that too. I feel that from the people who are already making or enjoying porn.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I just took, oh my freaking God. I just took a ADHD assessment last night, and two of the questions were about porn. They were like, "Did you watch pornography as a child?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then it was like, "Do you feel like this was problematic or do you think you were just curious?" And I'm like, "All kids are curious and also kids getting exposed to sex too early is problematic. Like, which one do you want me to choose?"
Yeah.
But then there was another one that was like, I don't know. It was like assessing porn or like unrealistic sex addiction or something. It was just and I had this flashback to like this psychiatrist who primarily prescribed me antipsychotics because I described having like a queer family and that like my primary family unit was like queer community, and he was like, the LGBT community, as it were, they can be your friends that you your pals you meet up at gay bars and pride festivals and things. He really had no idea, and he was like, but they can't be your family. So it was like evidence that I was totally batshit, that I felt like queer people were my family and I needed to be on antipsychotics. So I
Was this
genuinely,
in Jersey?
ooh, no, it was in Massachusetts. Yes,
Really?
yes.
That's so surprising.
Yes, I was going to Hampshire College and he was just
Wow.
like, I don't know. I mean, it's the difference sometimes between psychiatrists and psychologists. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like when psychiatrists don't do talk therapy and they just like are like, I'm just a pharmaceutical machine. I don't really know. I don't,
Yeah, that's
but
it
he just
seems too
was like
intense.
the
To me,
last
I'm just like,
Freud.
no.
Yeah, I was like, no, thank you. But yeah, he was like the last Freud of Western Mass. The last bastion. But oh my God, what were we talking about a second ago?
I mean, that's kind of the point of this podcast. It's supposed
Right?
to just be about everything.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, just the pathologizing of
mhm,
porn is still such a thing, right?
for sure.
And it grosses me out because it just, you don't always know what environment you're in when people are bringing up porn, and there's often this like assumption that porn can be used as like a metaphor for just things being like terrible and graphic.
But I also think it's the other way. Like anything positive is like, oh, it's food porn. It's this kind of porn. Like it's such a weird thing in our in I think particularly American culture because I feel like there's a better understanding of sexuality, I think, around the world than here.
Yes, I think that that is true in many places for sure.
Like we can't have boobs on TV here, but like we can have like so much violence and it's like fine. It's just so yeah.
No, we're like, we like our sexuality subliminal and only on the terms of man's, and we like a lot of guns.
People better be dying, there better be bullets, or I'm going home. Like that's uh
Yeah, it definitely is an American culture thing for sure. I think that what's hard is that like, while I think sexuality definitely has a little bit more like fluency in places like Germany and other parts of Western Europe, there is
mhm.
also this like, the other side is like less nuanced understanding of racism and racial
That is
dynamics,
true.
so it's like I'm always being like, oh yeah, I'm gonna move to Berlin, and then I'm like, am I
Yeah.
it's like still 1997, all white people have dreadlocks. Like,
Oh my god. So you were in my movie Fucking Against Fascism.
true.
At the Amsterdam screening of that, someone had a Q&A question and it was a white Dutch girl with dreads and I'm just like, "No. Can you not?" And it's like we do these screening tours in Europe and there's like hella white people with dreads and it's ridiculous. I'm just like and there's like, "Oh, it's just different culturally here." I'm like, just in general though, white people shouldn't have dreads. Most people don't know how white people get dreads and it's literally just by not washing their hair. That's just it.
Yeah.
Like it's not a thing you can do and be like, oh, I'm doing it healthy or safe. There's no way
No,
you can actually do it.
no, they're just knotting their hair, or like literally backcombing was a thing. Like, just like, oof, oh god, it gives me
Uh,
it gives me like textural shivers. Bleh. But I mean, gosh, yeah, they do say that it is culturally different, but that's like a part of the whole narrative that would have you believe that like
Exactly.
America invented slavery by itself and like none of Europe was involved. And it's like America was Europe at that time, basically. So
Yeah. All of Western Europe has blood on its hands, like so heavily. Like
I'm like, oh, you feel like it's different for you to wear dreads because you just don't know any black people. I get it.
I, I just like don't understand that. I mean, I guess it's living like if you have dreads in Oakland, you're gonna get shit as a white person. You're gonna
Absolutely.
not have them very fast. Like it's just yeah, I don't know. I can't stand that stuff. I used to
Maybe.
always have a joke with my roommate when I would go off to Europe to screening tours. We would guess how many white people with dreads would show up. It was always like I'm always like it's gonna be over 5.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. I mean, maybe we should just like have a like a fake recruitment program where we just get white people from with dreads from Europe and just like be like, we would love if you would just visit Oakland, and then
Yeah,
they
just drop them in Oakland and
they'll
be
just
like,
all get their dreads cut off, and that'll be great. It'll be great. We'll be doing the world a favor.
that's the one thing I loved about Oakland so much is if you were doing something fucked up, someone's gonna let you know. And then you're not gonna do that anymore. I just love the directness of Oakland because it was like anything. Like there was like a Proud Boys meet up there. There were 3 of them. They got jumped by like 50 people.
Yes.
It's just like you can't do that in Oakland. You can't
Yes.
fuck around with people and be like, oh, it's gonna be fine. It's just like
Yes.
I really miss that about living in Oakland. I live in SF now, so it's a very different vibe.
What's the vibe in SF these days?
Empty as hell.
Oh.
Most I think it was like 40% of the city moved.
What?
Yeah, it was the largest mass exodus of any city at any like point since World War II.
Oh, I was gonna say since like Detroit or whatever, like
Oh well,
the
yeah.
white flight out of Detroit. Um,
Yeah.
fuck, wow, I did not know that. Oh my God.
Yeah. So like
Where'd they go?
yeah. Back to like Ohio where a lot of people moved to Austin, a lot of people moved to Vegas. Um yeah, it's just super empty now, which is really weird. Like my neighborhood's basically brand new and I would say it's probably like 30 to 40% full.
What neighborhood are you in?
I can't say that on the podcast.
I'm like, it's a podcast and we're talking about where we live. You're right.
Yeah, I'm like I can't go that far in, but
I know.
yeah.
I
Yeah,
know.
I live in a fairly new neighborhood here and it's like totally empty. And it's the weirdest thing because it's like these brand new apartments, totally like mostly open and it's still so inaccessible to so many of like people who are homeless here. It's just such a awful wealth disparity here.
Yeah, gross. It is here too, in Seattle. Um, yeah, it, ooh, capitalism is so gross because it's
It's
like
fucking
we have all
terrible.
these empty fucking houses, and of course, we couldn't put anyone who needs them in them. We couldn't possibly.
Yeah, like having family who've been homeless like over the course of my life, it's
Yeah.
made me realize like all this shit's just built on top of people suffering and just like it's just so fucked up that like there's empty apartments to keep the housing market alive when people are like literally dying on the fucking streets.
Yep.
It just I feel like with whole political discourse right now, particularly during the pandemic, I feel like it's just so returning back to normal. It's just like I feel like
Woo.
that stuff has to be addressed so fucking hard right now. I know this isn't very porn related,
No, it
but
is. It is. It is.
yeah,
I
it's just
mean,
such fucking bullshit. Like, I don't know. I'm very jaded by this whole system because neither party has really any interest to change that there's going to be people homeless on the street for the
mhm.
housing market to exist. And it's just, I think, such bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, I think any like I guess high up governmental candidate who doesn't believe in capitalism is not really able to, at this moment, get as far as they want to go in the actual system to dismantle it. But that's the only thing that would make me feel excited about an elected official, really, other than like local politics stuff, because there are plenty of radical people locally here. But
Yeah, don't you guys have a socialist mayor, right?
oh, well, no, we don't, unfortunately.
Oh,
We I'm like, actually, I'm like, well, we've had a lot of close calls. We've had like
hmm.
Nikita Oliver was gonna be well, I mean, I was really certain that they were gonna be mayor, and then they didn't get it
Oh, that's what it
in
was.
2017. And then there's also been we also have a representative in Capitol Hill neighborhood, Kashama Sawant, who is a, I don't know if she identifies as a socialist or a communist, but I know that she is anti-capitalist and has been really outspokenly supportive of like workers' rights and people of color and queer people, trans people, poor people. She's dope. But she also has been like repeatedly targeted by like right
Oh, of
wing
course.
people to be like, you're not allowed to be a representative anymore because you let people into she like let people into the building, like some building that was important. Like, it sounds so freaking ignorant, but it was during Black Summer, and it was
Hmm.
during like the occupation of the park, and
Yeah.
a lot of people were they like created an autonomous zone. It was really
Hmm.
cool. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, I don't understand the outrage that people have. They're like, they took over 5 blocks of Seattle. It's like, okay, so I don't like get the outrage over that, I guess. I'm just like, meh, all right, cool.
I think like the outreach can only come if this hasn't been like your dream since you were an insurrecto teenager. It's like so many people were like, wow, the revolution is really happening. And then it got taken apart. But I mean, they don't call them temporary for nothing. It was a temporary autonomous zone.
Yeah. Yeah. I like really went down a whole like Spanish revolutionary history and just like realizing like the whole Bakunin thing and like what was happening in Barcelona during that, where
Whoa.
like people's went to work and they're like, yeah, we're control the company. We work here now. We're in the middle of a civil war. We're just gonna run the city like this.
Woo.
That just like happened is the coolest thing to me. That it's just like I'm so jaded by being like, oh, well, this governmental change is going to happen. I think it's just going to be directly people being like, okay, we're just not going to let homelessness be a thing anymore. We're just
Oof.
going to decide to feed everyone. Like, that's the shit that I feel like I'm hopeful about because I feel like generally most people agree on these things. It's just there's like so many structures trying to keep it from happening.
Right. Well, that's the thing is that like ultimately no political orientation is real in the sense that capitalism is just the like true north that so
Yeah.
many people orient around. And so it's like it doesn't really matter what you say you care about if your bottom line is that the show must go on,
Yep.
which is exactly what's happening with the supposed end of the pandemic, is that yeah, it is like show must go on. Weren't we all so sad about having to only be virtual for that time? Aren't we sad that people died? Oh well, we're going to keep going, and we're just going to have all of the same structures that make it difficult for people to access resources. But this will
I think you cut out for a second.
I did.
Okay. Okay, you're
Yeah,
back.
yeah, your cute little face was frozen for me.
Oh, hopefully it stays.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, neither of these political parties actually want to upset the system.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they are the system. And I mean, I guess that if I were to tie this back around to porn, because I that's one of my talents, is connecting things to one another,
Hmm.
um, is I think like it feels very important to me that porn be it like porn performers and people involved in the porn industry be in solidarity with sex workers at
For
any
sure.
level and style, right? And
Hmm.
so it's like the point where my feelings about having a career will always end is at the point when I can like dream that none of us will have to be like working for food.
For sure. Like, yeah, I think particularly in porn, like you see so much of both people who are like making a good living and are like quote unquote famous, but then you see like so many of your peers who are struggling so much, and just it's such a hard thing to kind of see because it's this like weird dichotomy because so much of your life looks glamorous from the outside, but you have coworkers who are struggling with homelessness, you have people not being able to pay their bills. Like there's a lot of real issues in sex work as a whole that I think you kind of deal with as a sex worker as you're going through your career.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and it's like even just the fact that like some forms of sex work are more criminalized than
Mm-hmm.
others. Some are literally more illegal than others, you know? Just all of the like regulation of it really works to kind of like impose different class systems within sex work. Um, and like that's gross. And yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
like the glamour, that is kind of similar though to what I was saying about like the feeling of like people being like, "Oh, you're fine. You're good cuz you
Mm-hmm.
look good," you know, where it's like, "Oh, I have to get all of my shit together and post this like beautiful photo, but like that's not going to actually like capture the fact that I'm like worried about rent this month, or
For
that
sure.
I am like, you know, having hard heart feels about like someone that I'm sexy with, or like, you know, just different
Mm-hmm.
things that are not translatable in the same way. Um and yeah, also just like how much effort it actually does take to like create a product, and then like all of the energy that goes into that, and then the amount of time that you're actually shooting porn is like the smallest.
Yeah, I mean, like the hard things about porn aren't actually on set, and I feel like that's the thing that most people don't realize.
Yeah.
Like because they think, oh, the hard thing about porn is performing, that has to be such a hard grueling process, and I feel like usually it's not that the case. It's all the other stuff that comes with porn that's so hard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I feel blessed that this is my experience, because I know this isn't all porn performers
Hmm.
experience and having like a safe experience on set, but I would definitely say that like porn is what helped me feel safe about sex, because
Yeah.
I was doing it in this really structured environment, because there were breaks, there was like ways to talk practically about sexual acts as opposed to like talking in weird like awkward we're having sex for the first time language, you know, just being
Yeah.
like concretely, what acts do you want to do? Great, I'm going to do that to you now. Okay. Like I need some lube, I need these things, you know, whatever. And then afterwards you're just like sweaty and spent in a good way, which is also how I feel about like dancing and acting, like all performing mediums
Yeah.
that require me to use my whole body, you
It's
know?
definitely a full performance. Like, I think just like the physical demands, and I think mentally as well, like, you would need to be able to feel comfortable in a space that it's kind of weird to be around that many people naked. Like, when you take it out of the whole context, you're like, I'm one of two people naked in a room of like 10 people right now. and I and I have to perform on cue and just like have it work. Like it's really crazy when you step back. Because your first few shoots, I feel like it feels so intimidating and stuff. Then after a while, it's just like, oh yeah, I know how to do this.
Yeah, my first shoot, I was like, I don't think I actually looked beet red because I am a brown person and I can only get so red, but my cheeks were like on fire. Like just so like whoo, like I was, oh man, I was really like nervous and excited and just like really didn't know how I was going to get through without like passing out from a combo of like nervousness and excitement, but I just stayed hydrated and
It's a big one.
I had a lovely time. It
Who did
was
you shoot with?
I shot with Jaybird.
Oh my God. They're so great. I've totally forgot about them.
Yeah, I know. I don't think they perform anymore, do they?
No, they were gonna be my scene partner, but then they quit porn like the month before for Crash Pad at
Oh.
one point. Yeah, again, all these like early queer porn references that I totally forget. Like,
I know.
yeah,
Well, it was
like
like
the
at the
twincest
time,
thing. Yeah.
right, right. It was just like this blossoming of queer porn and felt like everyone was going to be a porn performer for a moment. It was just like
Yeah.
between like 2012 and 2016, I was like, woo, we're all porn now.
Yeah, I was like, wow, everyone I know is like getting kind of famous now. It was a weird thing, like just going back home. I'm originally from Michigan, and like people would be like, oh, you know this person? I'm like, yeah, they literally live right across the street from me. So I have one more question for you. Thank you so much, first off, for like taking all this time. And I'm just so glad that we got to chat about all this like old school queer porn stuff. I've talked to a few other people who were in it before us. Like I talked to Susie Q and Courtney
Oh,
about
cool.
it. So I got like a little bit of the earlier stuff, but so much of like, because I moved in 2013, you moved in 2012, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like we definitely have that same like experience from like the scene was so established when we both moved here, but then it like became so big. I feel like 2016.
Absolutely. 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 Yeah, I have loved talking to you about this. And it's so funny. Like, we have gone way back, but I feel like we have not necessarily like shared our thoughts about things at length with each other. So this is really
Yeah,
nice.
that's kind of why I like about the show because I'm like, we've been on multiple porn sets together. I've been to your house a few times, but like, we shared like a $90 Uber ride from SF back to Oakland once.
Yes, I remember that.
It was
Oh my
after, yeah, it was after
God.
Limp Wrist, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
that
yes.
was
Tony and
such a
I
show.
almost died at that show. We were like almost trampled by the
Oh my
crowd.
God.
We were definitely in the very, very front because that's my vibe, and I'm always
Yeah,
like, I'm tough. I can do it. I love moshing.
yeah,
Like, don't worry about the fact that I'm using a wheelchair. It doesn't make me fragile. I'm gonna beat you up. But
yeah. That's always the vibe I got off of you.
oh,
Like,
thank you so much.
yeah, 100%. Where
But
I'm like, they're tough as hell.
I am tough as hell.
Yeah.
Punk points all the way. But then I just remember this moment when beer got poured on my head, and it was
Oh no.
almost like a domino effect from there. It was like there was beer, and then all of a sudden 70 people were falling on me, and it was just like, the push of the crowd, man. And it's
Yeah.
like, we were fine, therefore I don't like internalize it as a super dangerous experience. But then now we are in 2022 and like people die at concerts.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I'm like, wow, okay, we got out with our lives. We did.
That venue was so hot too. It was like 110 degrees in there.
I know.
It was like so hot.
It was just like a cement box. It was just like,
Yeah, and like during like every time I drive by that area, I'm like, I think it's a grocery store, like every single time. So, oh, my question for
yes,
you. This is
yes,
the
yes.
only clickbaity kind of question I ask. If you could magically change one thing in porn that tomorrow morning is totally different, what would it be?
Oh man. Wow, I would take away the idea that like certain kinds of bodies are fetishes.
For sure.
That's what it's like. Whatever, we should all engage with fetishes as much as we want, but like how many of us who are trans or black or fat
Hmm.
or any or all of the above
Yeah.
have been like, well, I guess I have to market and capitalize on this like thing that I don't think of as a prime sexual feature of myself, but someone else does, and that someone else is a white man with more
Yeah.
money than me. So that is what I would instantly change, is just like this feeling that creeps in about my body whenever I engage with porn outside of the queer porn realm, because it's not like I care about the dichotomy between queer porn and mainstream porn at all. Mostly the thing that's kept me out of mainstream porn has been specific kinds of bodily beauty standards, you know?
Hmm.
Um, and I think I'm beautiful.
For sure. I mean, you're a super successful queer porn performer. I think that's more than enough. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Mainstream's so weird because even if you are the right body type and you fit into all their things, I feel like the way they just recycle performers,
Mm-hmm.
like you have a year or two, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like with queer porn, and now, like, my answer for this is always like, I just want sites like MiniVids to advance like 5 years in the next year,
Oh,
where these
yes.
studios just have less power. Like that's the thing that makes me feel like this industry is going into a better place. Because even if you look at like these mainstream directors now, most of them are either former performers, are working with performers in the way of, oh, what do you want to do? How do you want to make this film?
Yep.
It feels like it's changed a lot since like we both got into this industry. Where I feel like before it was so much that they like almost wanted us to fill slots and say, oh
Yeah.
no, we know how to make you successful. You have to do this for this amount of time. You have to do this for this amount of time, you know?
Right. Yes, a lot more prescriptive. You're giving me a lot of hope, and I feel very
Oh, that's what
excited.
I'm here for.
Yay!
Oh, did you hear about what happened at AVN this last year?
Um, I have heard about several things. The most recent thing I heard about is how Ron Jeremy is going to separate all of his trials into different trials and whatever.
Oh, wow. I didn't know about that.
Speaking of
I
old porn performers who suck. So
I
anyway.
have I ran into Ron Jeremy at my first AVN. I was at a diner and he walked in and it was only like four people. And I looked up and we made eye contact and I started laughing in his face. I was just like seeing him like in real life. I'm just like, that's hilarious. I feel way less bad about it now. But I looked at him and started laughing. And we were only like maybe like 5 feet away. Um, so oh, what happened at AVN 2 weeks ago is they are doing a new thing called Grand Reel now, where it's essentially like film of the year. I think they've only been doing it for maybe 3 years, something
Mm.
like that. So a trans film won for the first time ever. And there's basically no backlash that I've seen anywhere. So I think that's
Wow.
fucking crazy because trans women doing anything anywhere else is viewed as like, oh my God, they're taking over. That this can happen in porn and not have it be this huge, like cataclysmic thing, I
Oof.
think just gives me so much hope.
That is beautiful. That is awesome. Oof. I get AVN emails, but I often just read the subject line because
Yeah.
I have attention span issues, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna click on that, and then I open it, and then I keep it open as a tab for a while, and then eventually I'm like, I have too many tabs open. I'm just gonna close them. So thank you for giving
Yeah,
me important AVN news, because
of course.
I love it.
This is what I'm here for.
What was the name of the film?
um I am Casey, I believe. I think it's about a like from a trans woman's perspective of her transition, and then she like got to cast the people who
Ah,
played her before and stuff. I haven't seen it. honestly, that's not really what I'm looking for in my porn, but I can also appreciate that that's a really like important, cool thing, you know?
Yeah, that's
So,
beautiful.
but I also feel like AVN awards are so there's so many nominate like there's so much of it. It's kind of like the Olympics where I feel like it's very easy to miss a lot of things in it and a lot of the storylines that actually
Right,
happened. So I
right.
can't blame you at all for that.
There's so much. There is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, streamline the information for me. Like,
Yeah.
give
You
me
just
a
want like
recap.
yeah, like a 30-second rundown of what you should know.
Yes, please. Maybe that's another project of yours.
Yeah, maybe that's the next project.
AVN, your AVN recap.
So, where can people find you on all the apps?
Oh, yes. So I am Carnegie Velvet, and on Twitter it's Carnegie V XXX, or I also have just Carnegie Velvet, but I don't use that Twitter as much. I mostly use the explicit one. Um, and my Instagram is also at Carnegie Velvet. And I have a website, carnegievelvet.com. And yeah, I'm like, are those all of the things? I
I
think those
think
are all of
that's,
the things.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on, Carnegie. It was so great to chat with you. And I hope we're in the same city sometime soon after the whole pandemic is over or less intense, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I would be very happy to get to hang and chat in the near future
For
for sure.
sure. Well, bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you so much.